Okay, so now we're ready to start our automatic tracking. So to automatically track something inside of NUKE, what we want is the 3D camera tracker. We're going to find that by just searching for the camera tracker right there. And we're just going to plug that into our footage. Throw it in right over here. Again, I've kind of disattached or deattached this tracker 1 here just not to slow things down. So let's talk about this camera tracker. Now, yes, it's a camera tracker. Unfortunately, NUKE doesn't have a 3D object tracker, so we're going to kind of use the camera tracker in reverse. Rather than tracking the movement of a camera, we're going to fool NUKE into thinking that his face is our entire background by kind of hiding the rest of it. And rather than it's the head that's moving, NUKE is going to think that there's a camera moving around the head, which will actually work for us just fine. So let's see how we can get this set up. For starters, source is fine, the sequence. We do want to attach a mask. I don't want to track any of this area over here. I want it to focus on the face, definitely avoid the neck and the shoulders, and that's why we made this the roto. So I'm going to plug that roto in here through the mask port, right there. And very important, I have to set the mask over here, otherwise it doesn't really do anything. So if what I want to keep is inside that mask, I need to set it to mask inverted alpha. There we go. Range is fine. It's going to use our whole input, which is all the frames. The camera motion, we can choose between rotation, free camera, linear motion, or planar motion. What we want is free camera. Rotation would be as if the camera was on a tripod, so you don't really have any kind of movement in the translation axes. Linear motion would be something like a pan, while a planar motion would be a pan and 2 axes. So free camera is what we want. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we can actually remove lens distortion here. I can tell it it's an unknown lens, and to tell it to undistort the input. I'm going to leave mine at just no lens distortion. I don't really want that factored in here. Now, the focal length is something you may or may not have from your camera, or your camera operator may have. We don't have the focal length for this shot, but that's okay because NUKE doesn't necessarily need it. Oops. You can see we have several different options. If I know what it is, I can enter it into known. If I have an approximate value, maybe I know roughly it was 32, I can put approximate constant. If I know it changed over time, let's say to 32 roughly to like 40 something roughly, I can say approximate varying. Also, if I know it's changed over time, but I don't know by how much at all, I can do unknown varying. Or in my case where I know it doesn't change, but at the same time I still have no clue what it is, unknown constant works fine. NUKE will figure it out for us. Now, of course, if you have it, that makes it better, but we don't. Now, the film back is going to be the sensor size on your camera. Now, some cameras, nicer high-end cameras, will actually offer these numbers on their website, in their manuals. Lower end, not such good cameras typically won't, because it kind of gives away how small their sensor size is. So you can usually dig something up through some research. There's also a lot of presets here for the more popular higher end cameras. In my case, I used a very not so great camera. It doesn't even belong to me, so I don't really have the film back size. However, what I do know is that 1280 by 720, which is, 1920 by 1080, which is what I filmed this at, is the native resolution. So I can actually do a little cheat here where I can do something like 19.2 and 10.8. So you might wonder, well, what does that do? Well, if the native resolution was 1920 by 1080, then that's going to be the size of the sensor. At least that's the best guess I could possibly have. And that's all this really needs. It doesn't care how large these are. It's just looking for the ratio. Now, you can't always assume your footage is going to be 1920 by 1080 just because that's how you received it. For all you know, it was filmed on a 2K camera, which is a different resolution. It's a different aspect ratio, and somebody may have cropped it down. So that's something you kind of have to play by ear and see how much information you can get. All right, that's all the information I need to enter here. The next thing I'm going to do, we're just going to bring that over here, is jump into settings. And this is where I can actually come in and enable preview features. And you can see it is going to show me where it's going to try to track. Now at the moment it's only doing 150 features, and you will notice it's a little bit on the outside of the face here. That's because our mask is not perfect, but that's okay. But I can start increasing things like how many features. I can go all the way up to 2,000 if I want to. And you can see there's a lot of features there. And notice they start to get clumped into very specific areas. This has to do with the feature separation. Right now it's allowing them to clump together, but if I drop this number to 6, you can see it starts kind of forcing them apart, basically saying that, yeah, there might be better information in those areas there, but I'd like you still to try to track kind of a little bit further out. I'll maybe leave mine at 8. Now the detection threshold is how contrasty does something need to be in order to be captured. And you can see as I drop this, more things get selected. As I increase this, less gets selected. So this one is going to be, again, dependent on the footage. You can see there's not a huge amount I'm losing here because most of my features are fairly obvious to the system. So leaving it at something like 0.1 works fine. Now I can also refine feature locations, which is going to try to find natural kind of corners and things like that in areas. With a lot of these features, detection threshold, feature separation, refining features, as well as a number, there's no magic formula that just works great. It's going to be different on every type of, or every piece of footage. You just need to experiment. Now, just for testing purposes, I'm going to bring this to like 300 so it's a little bit faster. And I'll go ahead and see if I can, just trying to remove some of the unnecessary areas, although it's really looking all the same to me. So 0.2. And I'll probably turn off refine feature locations because it's kind of getting rid of some of them. I don't want to lose too many. So here under tracking, and this doesn't have to be changed now, we can actually adjust a lot of this later. I can tell it, for example, with the minimum length, if something lasts 3 frames, keep it. I don't want that. I want something, maybe if it lasts 15 frames to be kept. Anything shorter than that could be a mistake. The tracking threshold is how easily it's going to hang on to things. So you can change this to get tracks that last longer, or maybe let go if they jitter around too much. You can also add smoothness to the tracks as well as consistency. I typically leave most of these alone. And that's really about all we need to do here. Let's go ahead and do a quick test track and just see how things look. What does this actually give us? So I'm going to come back to camera tracker here and just hit track. So, and we'll give it just a moment there, and you can see it's going to begin tracking these points. And it's just kind of like our manual trackers, except it's obviously doing a lot of them at once. And it kind of gives up really quick if it can't hang on to something. We'll go ahead and let this solve, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, so it's completed. Took roughly 5 minutes, pretty accurate to what the timing bar was telling us. And you can see what it's produced here. So we got tons of little tracking markers, and you can see when I actually kind of highlight over them, it even tells me how long they are. So that one's 82, that one's 77, that one's 100 and, looks like 103 or 108, that one's 86, that one's 34. And if I kind of scrub through here, you can see, it's kind of the path it's almost making. In fact, if you actually disable your footage, you can almost kind of see the path that the face is taking in there. You can kind of see there's the initial turn right there. There we go, to one side, to the other side, and then back. So you can see that right there. Now you can see there are a lot of points that are incorrect. We're going to have to remove those points. But anyway, this was just a quick look at kind of how this works. What we're going to do in the next clip is actually set this up for a much higher end track, one that's probably going to take a lot longer, maybe 20 to 30 minutes as opposed to 5. And we'll also take a look at how we can begin to clean up a lot of those errors in there, because we definitely don't want to leave these points in here. You can see that they're not really correct. This one's moving down while all of these are moving, you can see kind of arcing down. These are kind of arcing up. All right, I'll see you guys in the next clip.